Welcome back to Home Cooking Kitchen. We've really taken a little hiatus and now we're back. Season 3 has started and we're starting off with something a little bit new. Our social media has been watching us cook with the Sous Vide. This is the Joule Sous Vide. It's the one we really enjoy and it's not real expensive. You can get it on Amazon, etc. It's Joule. Link is in the description below. But I want to show you where we really think that the Sous Vide shines. We use it for poaching eggs, for preparing vegetables, etc. But meat is really where this machine will make your life easier. Not only will it never overcook it, you can turn it on and let it go. It's controlled straight from your phone. So it comes in pretty handy, Wi-Fi and Bluetooth, just in case. So I'm going to show you today on just some regular supermarket meat that we've purchased. So we've got a full tenderloin that we purchased just from one of the big box stores, cut it into smaller steaks, and we're just going to take this regular meat and we're going to turn it into something that you would have gotten from any top steakhouse. So you can see there's not a lot of marbling, a little bit here and there. This is just standard meat. It's not choice or prime, just standard meat. So we're going to take these. Now I cut my steaks fairly thick because I enjoy a nice, very rare steak. We're going to be cooking to medium rare today. You can change where you want to do it on your app to choose the type of doneness that you want. So here's two steaks that we have. We have our Joule already heated up. Now I have it at 129 degrees Fahrenheit, which will give me a medium rare steak. So we're going to prepare it before it goes in here. The other thing you do have to have is either a vacuum sealer, which is really the best, and you should get one anyway. We'll do a whole show, but you should get one anyway. If you do not have that, then you can use a Ziploc baggie and just keep pushing the air out of it. The air all has to come out. So we're going to use some rubs and such on the meat to prepare them before we vacuum seal them. Now you can do this a day in advance, 2 days in advance. You can do it and throw it in the freezer and go from freezer straight into a sous vide. It'll take longer, but it'll get it to that temperature and it'll never rise it above it. No overcooked steaks. Today we're going to be using our steak seasoning. It's actually more of almost a general type rub for any kind of beef. It's called Rub It. You see, cute little cow on the front. It is a nice seasoning for any kind of beef product. Now I also use it on vegetables and I use it as a finishing salt as well. That's why we put it together. So we're going to take this and put it all over our meat. Don't be afraid to over season. A lot of the seasoning that you are putting on here is going to soak directly into that meat. So we want to make sure that this meat is well seasoned. Because it's thick, I'm going to turn it on its side as well. Okay, and turn it on the other side. Okay, so now we've got this nicely seasoned here, and we're going to add a few more things. I have here a food saver bag, and we want to place this inside. When I'm filling these, I like to turn this upper part wrong side out, because if there's liquid or debris up in the top part when you try to seal it, it may not activate the seal. You can put it inside a big coffee can, inside a big this. I'm just going to hold it. So the thing about this sous vide is that we really want to get the air out. So we want to get down into these corners. Well, you can see this isn't going to fill it up. We're going to use oil to fill those corners and make sure there's no air. If it is a little air, or if you're using a Ziploc bag, it'll start to float and only one part of it will cook. And I'll show you a little trick. You just take a small bowl or a plate and put it on top. It'll sink. Okay, but we're going to do it right. And we're going to take this, and because it's a fairly large bag, I'm going to put it sideways. And then I'm going to put this one sideways. And you're just going to try to make it to where there's some separation and you're going to have room for your other products. So in this, I'm going to use olive oil. It's generally what I use. It has a nice flavor to it. And you really don't have to worry about putting too much in there because you're not going to be eating what's left. This is just to keep the meat nice and moist and to fill those little gaps where that air might be. So we've put in probably about 3 tablespoons into this, and I just want to kind of give it a little pat and make sure I have enough here in the corners. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to take some fresh rosemary right out of the garden. If you don't have fresh rosemary, can you use dried? Sure, you can use whatever you have. If you are going to be using dried, I do like to mix it in the oil first so that the flavors will bloom. You don't have to worry, now these were washed obviously, but you don't have to worry about if the stem is on, we're not going to eat this. So I'll put some on one side and some on the other. The next thing I'm going to add is some cloved garlic. So now we like a lot of garlic. So these are just whole, peeled, and I'm going to put one over here and one over here and one over here, a couple over here, and just drop those in there. Now remember that we've already seasoned the meat with our rub, but we are going to suggest that if you don't have our rub, remember you can order it, we ship all over the US. If you don't have it, you can always just use salt and pepper to flavor this because you've got the rosemary and the garlic in here as well. So now you can see we've got this meat all set up. We've got some oil in here, our rub, our rosemary, and our garlic. And now I'm going to seal this. This food saver, now we have like, I don't know, 2 or 3 of these. This one does have a wet or moisture seal on it, and you can just stick it right in and it seals by itself. It's pretty handy, has the accessory attachment, but like I say, it's pretty old. Okay, so now we're gonna pull this back up. And the main thing when you're using a bag is that you wanna make sure that this edge is straight and that there's nothing impeding it. You can see here's where we folded it. So now that it's folded, this is completely clean up here. We're going to I'm gonna have to do it this way. I don't know if I can lean over that way to do it. And we've got food in our pulse so that we can, and we're gonna do moist, and we want it to pulse. Now I'm putting it on a pulse because what I'm constantly doing is checking to make sure that I'm getting air down in these sides. You can just let it go. But as you see, you can get lots of air through here, and it just takes a second. Now the reason we're using the moist setting is you can see that oil starting to climb up here. And that is pretty well sealed. And now we're just going to seal it. So any air in here is going to keep this from cooking all the way through. Try to get as much air out as possible. Once that seals that, then we're going to place it into our sous vide. Okay, so now we're going to place this into it. Remember, we're at 129 degrees Fahrenheit, and we're going to place this in here. Now, if you're using a baggie especially, you may want to leave a little tab right there that you can get hold of. If you don't have one of these plastic containers, I highly recommend it because it keeps the moisture in. You can always use a Dutch oven and just cover it with plastic wrap. These are just handier, and you can do a whole chicken in this. It doesn't look like it, but you can. So it is all sunk. You can see, John, can you zoom in there? You can see that the meat is sunk at the bottom, so there's no air in there. We're going to take our phone and pop open our little app. And we're going to say, I want this to be at 129 degrees Fahrenheit. I'll put some screenshots of this below. It's kind of hard for y'all to see it right now. And it's going to push that up there, and I'm going to put this in. This is fresh, so it's not frozen. So this is for only 129 degrees. We are probably going to maybe do, let's try 45 minutes and see where we are. So we're going to come in here, choose it. We're going to set the temp, 129 degrees for medium rare. In it, it'll tell you. You don't have to remember these things. This is a very clever app. We're going to set the time. It asks, is it fresh? How thick is it? So this is fresh, and it's about 1.5 inches thick. And your cook time is going to be about 1 hour and 30 minutes. So we're going to check on this in about 1 hour and 30 minutes. And the nice thing about this is that this will beep you, or your watch will go off with a notification, and it says your food is ready. Now, once your food is ready, you don't have to rush over there. It can hold it at temperature for about 1 hour more for beef or meats in general without it becoming mushy. So if you don't have quite time or dinner's not quite ready yet, you can leave it in here and it will never overcook it. So this is a great time saver, especially if you're running a little slow on your time and you're in there fixing a million other things. Steak. You can do it very easily, and we only have one little finishing thing that we have to do to it before we serve it. So I'm going to let this run. When this is finished, we're going to come back and I'm going to show you how we finish off this meal. Our app went off and said that our food is ready. So we're going to take it out of here first. Now, before you do that, you're going to need a good pair of scissors because you're going to want to cut that and open it. You're also going to need some tongs or tweezers, whatever your preference is, and you're going to need some paper towels because we're going to put the beef here. We want to dry that and put the slightest bit of coating of baking soda on it before we put it in the pan to sear. Wet meat will steam. Dry meat into a little bit of oil will sear. So it's important here too that you're using a regular pan, not a non-stick. Non-stick just doesn't sear the way other pans will. Stainless, in this case, we're using a carbon steel, or you can use good old cast iron. On that note, we want to make sure that this pan, if this is a carbon steel similar to cast iron, if you're using those things, heat these up slowly. If you sit it on here, hit high, it's going to develop hot spots. You want all of that heat to go all over this pan. We do not have the oil in it because what's the rule? Hot pan, cold oil. So let's start off with taking our meat out of the sous vide. Now, this is only 129 degrees. I don't have any problem in sticking my hands in here, but my hands are a little bit probably more used to being burned than most. Use a tweezer if you don't want to do it. Now you see here that the oil has come up. The meat is all nice and dry, or is all nice and cooked. We're going to just take the top of it off and just hold it so it doesn't go all over the place. Okay, now when I take this out, this meat isn't going to look very good because we're used to seeing that sear. That's what this is for. So we're just going to take our meat out and we're going to put it right here on the paper towel. You can see that tweezer almost cuts it just from holding the weight. That's how tender that meat is. Now I'm going to throw this away. I don't reuse the oil or the garlics, and so we're going to toss that here pretty soon. So we're going to get all of this off. All right, so now it's time to talk about our meat. We're going to dry this off so that it's very dry. Now this meat is also thick, so we're going to sear it on the other side. Now you see how all of that seasoning, it is completely gone. It is completely gone. It is soaked in, pushed into that meat. So before we begin, we're going to take a little bit of our seasoning. This is the Rub It seasoning. And we're going to mix it with the tiniest bit of baking soda. That baking soda will speed up that Maillard reaction and get you that nice sear. So I'm just going to put a little bit in here and give it a little stir. Just into that baking soda. Okay, so now I'm just going to take a little bit, put it on the meats, do the other side. Now you have to kind of handle that a little gingerly because it's really, tender. Okay, and then just on the sides. Now I'm not reusing this, otherwise I wouldn't be sticking my hands back in here. I use just enough for that. And then we'll use a little bit of rub as a finish. So this pan has been heating up on low on this little convection hot plate. And I know we've talked about these before. They're great. You can take them anywhere you want and they cook great and they don't get hot. Like right now things are not heating up. But I am going to up the... So this pan, I've got about 10 seconds before I really want to lift my hand, which means it's pretty hot. And I'm going to put the oil in. You can see that the oil is already starting to shimmer. We're adding about 2 tablespoons. If I lift this up to try to show you, this will shut off. Another wonderful thing about this. So this has sat here for a little bit. I'm going to take my beef and I'm going to put it straight down in here. And can you hear it? You don't want it so bad that you're spraying everything everywhere, but you do want to make sure you've got a good sear on it. I like to leave mine on a sear at about 2 to 3 minutes per side. This is pretty hot, and you can see it didn't even stick. That's how hot it is. Hot pan, cold oil, all the time. So we're going to time this at about 2 to 3 minutes. Then I'm going to flip it, and then we're going to sear the other side. Now, while we're waiting for that, let's put away our things. Okay, so we have some other things here. Plate. Now, I love a compound butter with my steaks. It adds, especially ones that are pretty lean. This is pretty lean. This tenderloin, this is not big marbled Wagyu beef. This is regular supermarket meat. So I've made here a little compound butter. This is Kerrygold salted butter with some gray Celtic sea salt, fresh parsley, just the leaves, not the stems, and fresh garlic, ground up. Then I added a little bit of ground pepper to it, and I throw it in the freezer, and I just keep it there because then you can just take a little medallion and place it on your beef. So we're going to move these around, make sure that that oil is everywhere. And that sear is starting to get nice. I don't know, John, can you see? Cameraman John. Can you see? Okay. It's a real upscale production around here, in case you didn't notice. All right. So we're going to come over to the other side. And you're getting a nice, beautiful sear on this. Okay. Now you know our meat has to rest. And it doesn't take a really long time. I'm going to turn that off for a second. It doesn't take a really long time for this to heat up and get to the point. We don't want to cook anymore. I don't know if you can see, but this is very, very tender. Very, very tender. Okay? So let's do power setting. Let's pull this back up. All right. So we have a nice sear on that and a nice sear on this. So before we go any further, I'm going to take this and move this out of the way. All right. Now onto their plate, you want to add just a little compound butter. So I would say just a little, don't use that end, make it pretty, just about a 1/4 inch. And I just place it right on top. This gives it a little bit of herbaceousness, and it'll melt right on there. So we're going to put these things away, clean our stuff up. Of course, we want a little bit of parsley. Remember, leaves, not stems on parsley. You can use the stems on cilantro. but not so much on parsley. Not too tasty. So we're just going to do this, and this would be great with a little bit of sauteed onions and mushrooms, etc. So we'll come right back after we clean everything up, and we'll cut into this and see, because we do need to let that meat rest for about 15 minutes before we cut it. Okay, our steak has rested about 15 minutes. Now we're going to serve our meat. This really is a big piece of meat. I would say this piece here could serve 2 people easily. Same here. So you have some options. Rather than serving these huge steaks, you can do that, or you can simply take it and you can slice it. Now, we're going to just right across the grain. You see that knife just goes right through there. And we have beautiful steak that is, this is medium rare. Now, remember, you can make it as cooked or as not cooked as you want. And we're going to add to this, I was going to say, you can slice it in thin slices and serve it on a plate. Now, I'm going to use a little bit of our rub as just a finishing salt because it's super flavorful. And I'm going to see if perhaps the cameraman might want to zip over and see if he wants to try a bite. You want to try a bite? But you can see that fork, that knife just runs right through this.
Perfect. Nice.
Okay, go back to your camera. It's so funny. Okay, so you can see though that that fork goes right into it. All right, so I'm gonna try a little bit. Here we go. It's so tender. It tastes like you're at a steakhouse. It's not polite to talk with your mouth full. You cannot go wrong on this recipe. It doesn't matter. Buy the best cut you can afford, as thick as you can. Add the rub, do the sous vide, and all you need are those little bitty things. And I'm telling you right now, this is so tender and juicy. I may have to cut you another piece so you can see. And remember that you don't have to remember temperatures. If you buy the Joule, it's a little bit more pricey than the others, but you get what you pay for. So, John, can you zoom in right here? I want you to see how beautifully done this steak is. I mean, that is perfect. Do you see how tender it is when I just press my fork to that? That is really a buttery, flavorful, perfectly cooked weeknight meal. Thanks for joining me today at Home Cooking Kitchen. If you'd like to have some of our rubs or anything like that, please visit our website at homecookingkitchen.net. They are there and we ship US wide. If you want to look for recipes and such, we'll be posting those on our blog posts as we go along. We have a new cookbook coming out towards the September-October part of this year. Be sure and look for it. The other 2 are also available on our website. So until then, stop eating out, start eating in. Love the ones you're with and do it with a Joule. It'll work every time. Thanks so much, and we'll see you next time on Home Cooking Kitchen.
I do.